Today in Bowling Green, the prosecution resting its case in the trial of the decade, the murder of Crystal Rogers from Bardstown. But what the judge said from the bench brought tears and emotion, saying it's reasonable for a jury to find that Ms. Rogers is deceased in this case. It's been a major day in this trial, many surprises.
And right now we are joined by WHS 11 News legal analyst Nick Mudd. And Nick, first up, are you surprised that the prosecution rested so quickly with the evidence that's been presented so far? I
do think we expected something more. I think we were all expecting kind of some smoking gun, some aha moment. I know we've talked a lot about the phone records, and we've heard from something or 30-something witnesses, but really there's not been that gotcha moment to where we thought, oh, the defense is really in trouble. And it's still hard to tell. They're building circumstantial cases, we know, but there's not been a smoking gun that we were all kind of holding our breath waiting to hear.
You, of course, are a defense attorney now. You're a former prosecutor. Right. Were you told me you felt the prosecution just really, you didn't think they did enough in this case or presented enough, that it maybe have ended too soon?
I'm just a little worried that enough hasn't been presented to really convince the jury. Certainly, they've cast a wide net. They presented a lot of circumstantial evidence, which we've talked about a lot, but nothing that really pinpoints directly. You know, and I know the defense is planning on putting on a case the next couple days. They're going to have witnesses, and certainly I'm expecting them to call experts, witnesses, et cetera, to try to poke holes in any of that circumstantial evidence.
Steve Lawson admitted in his trial to the tampering charge. He said he moved Crystal's car. I mean, that seemed like, you know, pretty meaty motive, you know, for the prosecution there when he admitted to all that. And is it a mistake that he's not involved in this trial?
It's tough to say. Certainly, there are legal reasons why he was severed out. And, you know, we heard his statements, and I think we all thought he's dead in the water. There's no way he's going to get out of this, which then he testified. And certainly, unfortunately, I don't think it helped his cause. He ultimately got convicted. We don't have that sort of statement from Houck or Joseph Lawson here. We don't have that kind of thing that really puts them directly involved. And certainly with Joseph Lawson, you know, there hasn't been a lot of proof presented. I mean, we haven't heard his name that many times. There's been occasional, but really everything regarding him has been shot down on cross-examination. And almost today, when the testimony about Joseph Lawson really pointed back to Stephen Lawson being involved.
I want to go over with you the cell phone information. You, of course, have been fascinated by the information and the data. This was Crystal Rogers' cell phone. This goes to July 3rd, 2015, the day we believe that may have been her last day alive. For most of the night, so she's supposed to be having a romantic evening with Brooks Houck. They're meeting at the farm between 7:39 p.m. and 9:23 p.m. Of course, it's raining that day. Rogers played mobile games, according to the cell phone forensic scientist who was there. He said at 9:23, the phone's battery died. It begins powering on again around 11:57 p.m. before being manually turned off. Was Crystal Rogers playing on her phone on July 4th after midnight? The prosecutor asked, and the expert said no, that phone was not in use. What do you make of this? What is this telling the jury?
Well, we do know that obviously the phone was being played in those 2 hours, but the question is what happened between 9:23 p.m. on July 3rd and 11:57 p.m.? You know, certainly the defense has their theory. The prosecution, when it's their time to give a closing argument, is going to have to tie that directly into the cell tower data information that we heard from the former, I think, an LMPD detective. We've heard some other detectives and experts on that. So they're going to have to sort through this data for the jury and give a coherent explanation of how, the timeline of how Crystal lost her life.
There were some conversations that the jury heard between Brooks Houck and a grandmother?
Brooks Houck and his mother, I believe, yes. I think there's a private recorded conversation. Unfortunately for us, only the jury heard those. I think they had headphones on, so you really couldn't hear those in there. But, you know, we're kind of hearing there may have been some stuff, talk about a blanket or something like that is my understanding. I believe it was regarding a search of July 9th, a blanket in the back. Ms. Houck says, what about the blanket? And Brooks Houck says, oh, don't worry about that.
So the defense asked for a directed verdict, which means they're asking the judge to give them a verdict so it doesn't go to the jury. The judge denied that, but then he said that from the bench today, really bringing home those final words that so many people were, you know, it's inherent in this case, but That's coming from the judge on the bench. The jury was not there. Right. But how impactful was what Judge Sims said today on that?
I think it's never been said in an official proceeding, especially by a court, that Crystal's no longer with us. And I think that resonated with the family. Just hearing that, you know, when someone goes missing, we don't have a body, so there's always hope that maybe she's out there, you know. And I understand why we're here, but for the poor family to have to hear that and listen to that, it was tough. And I think it kind of sent shockwaves through the victim, or through Crystal's family, and, you know, became a very emotional moment for them.
All right. Thank you, Nick. And of course, Nick will be joining me with Shay and Alexandra Goldberg at 9 p.m. tonight on the WHS 11 Plus app, as we're going to be wrapping up a 30-minute special report for you on this big day.
All right. Now.